Hi, and welcome to another exciting night of us doing the pirate news. And we are coming to you here from Massachusetts. Uh, I am your quartermaster, Joseph, and with me tonight I got Steve and Jamie. Gentlemen,
Hello?
Ahoy.
so we're going to get right into it um, tonight with what the president said. Of course, we're going to touch upon this with injecting bleach. I think the latest is he's claiming it was sarcastic, and now he's refusing to do press conferences over this. Um, what?
Is that a loss?
Well, yes and no. To me, I mean, being a leader means whether you like it or not, do your job. You know, I think that it's a pretty famous quote around here: "Do your job." And now he's kind of slacking on that. I don't care if he has friends or not. You do your job, and doing his job is leading the people, right? Um,
Well,
One
there's
would think.
I was really astonished when I think it was a Guardian who that first published an article identifying the individual who put that thought into Trump's mind, and it was a someone who runs a company that manufactures industrial bleach, and which is it's that's kind of like, oh wow, yeah, so a guy who's got a company that makes industrial bleach is touting it as a cure for coronavirus. Wonderful. But there's now, back in the day, I used to do a lot of camping as a kid. So if you go camping, you need water, and you can't necessarily always carry in what you need. So, there are times when you're out camping and you might have to like disinfect a little bit to have to drink. So in that context, as a kid, what I having taking a canteen, a quart, and putting 2 drops of household bleach in it, and letting it sit for 30 minutes as a way to disinfect. Um, you know, that's something I did. It doesn't 2 drops in a quart, you know, is is just a small amount. It tastes like crap, but it will kill a
Chlorinated
lot of
water.
pathogens. Right.
I mean, isn't that Florida water in a nutshell?
It was definitely Scranton water. Um, and but there's just out of as we were talking, getting ready for this segment, I decided to, pull up the CDC's recommendations for like emergency water purification or backcountry water purification, and that is one of the recommendations. Iodine or bleach. They say follow. One of their documents says follow manufacturer's instructions, strictly follow manufacturer's instructions. The other says 8 drops per gallon. Um, but I mean, this is using something like bleach or iodine to disinfect water is a very far cry from drinking bleach to try to rid yourself of a virus. I should note that one of the most effective ways of killing viruses in water that you're about to drink is to bring it to a rolling boil for at least a minute. To be perfectly clear, no one should attempt to cure themselves of coronavirus by putting themselves into boiling water for a minute. The
Hmm.
lobster doesn't like it. You will not like it either.
Well, there's also that. I know a lot of water purification systems use activated carbon to do it,
Hmm.
like a Brita and
Okay.
things like that. In fact, or what a lot of the major bottling manufacturers do is they distill the water and then add back in the flavoring of dirt. So essentially, if you're getting like a Poland Springs, that's triple distilled water that's just been dirt added to it for flavoring. That's why all like pretty much most of the waters are they're all just different versions of they're different flavor packets of dirt put back in.
Interesting.
Fun fact for you, the inner nerdy science needed to know,
Mhm.
and but yeah, that's why smart water is it's basically
Not?
they just didn't add the dirt. It's pretty much
Ah.
all they did. But whether it's coming from Maine or coming from wherever,
Mhm.
I think the one of the only few ones I think was Fuji, and that one is just because it is the dirt comes naturally with it.
Yeah.
But
So, and by dirt you mean minerals, correct?
yeah, dirt.
Yeah, but ultimately I think what we're trying to say is don't drink disinfectants.
Yeah, make.
Don't inject yourself with disinfectants.
I agree.
um,
Don't eat Tide Pods. That's bad too. So
And
no.
and don't have strong UV lights project onto your skin. That's just a way towards skin cancer, not towards protecting yourself from any virus.
yeah, cooking yourself is also a bad idea. And so, I mean, and that's what's going on with our country nationally. I know that we're all saying, "Oh my God, Joe Biden has mental deficiencies," but the real fact of the matter is, we're already have a president with mental deficiencies. So, honestly, it can't be worse than what's going on right now. Um,
I mean, the amazing thing when I first heard that was that's clearly someone who's never cleaned a single thing in his entire life. Because if you go and you have to go and wash the floor or wash the countertop or wash something, especially with say ammonia or bleach, there's very big warnings: do not drink. And clearly, someone who's never done that would never have seen those warnings and would not have been able to internalize it. Plus, your mom, your dad, they should just tell you, you don't do that.
Yeah.
yeah,
And
There's a
just
reason why it's
since
locked
you
under the
mentioned ammonia,
cabinet, right?
and since you mentioned ammonia, among the things that you should not do, don't mix bleach and ammonia.
yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
way to make some toxic fumes that you won't see coming and will kill you. But that being said, no matter what the recipe says, yeah, don't do that one unless you're in a very well ventilated area. Um, so that being said, it seems like we're at kind of a pause for what's going on a national level with this pandemic. However, state by state, I know CNN had really good coverage as to what different states are doing what. Steve, could you update us on what we're doing here in Massachusetts?
Well, Massachusetts, as far as I know, we are still under emergency order to keep non-essential businesses closed until May 4th. I've also heard that we have joined the coalition of New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, and the other northeastern states to kind of get together and collaborate on a sensible way to ease up the social distancing restrictions and bring get things back to normal. Um, you know, I have to give our governor credit where credit is due. Charlie Baker is a bit of a wonk. He's a bit of a nerd, but he's also a critical thinker, and I think he's been making good rational decisions throughout this process. I know that he's want before he we start getting to reopening Massachusetts, he's interested in seeing testing, tracing, and quarantine procedures, having those in place before before going forward with a plan to ease up on the social distancing. But that's where we are at the moment. Which I guess there's still in a bit of a wait and see, and putting the pieces in place so that we could do this sensibly and safely.
Well, I know.
Right, but
Sorry, go
sorry,
ahead,
no.
Jamie. No, no, go ahead.
Now I was going to say the bar has been so lower that just kind of general competency is seen as some Herculean quality. You would think that anyone who would be in charge would care about coming up with a plan to make sure that we're adequately testing everyone, that there are enough masks. But we don't really see that, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One of the things that it looks like we're losing Jamie for a minute. Um, One of the things that I've definitely noticed, though, in some of these measures that we're taking, is that um, the schools have kind of done some things to keep their students on track. However, one of the things that they did with my kids that they sent home for tablets and stuff, even though the tablet's a great tool, um, it is one hard to keep my son on that tablet. But two, that once they have access to the network, um, they really just I have no way of controlling the tablet anymore. It's like they reached in through our own network to control what's going on with it. I know there was something that happened a few years ago, um, and Jamie, you were actually telling me about it.
Sure. Sorry about that.
No, no
Doug
worries.
had wanted to go out. Yeah, so back in 2010, when you know when school systems started to give out computers for students, especially those who may not have been able to afford them, it came to light that there was a teenager who was eating some of I think they were Mike's and Ike's candy, and he got called into the office and by the school, and he had been eating the candy in front of his computer. So the camera on the computer had been taking pictures of him. And he was accused of taking drugs and things like that. And when his family found out that basically the school system was spying on them, there was an incredible stink about that. And they ultimately sued the school system to get them to stop that.
Mm. So major violation of privacy. Now,
Absolutely.
my concern is if the school systems and by which they are government funded, government controlled, government regulated, they're basically a branch, its own sub branch of the government, especially in the public schools, anyways. And yet now they have unprecedented access into people's homes with tablets, with cameras, and anyone who hacks a school system, even though they have the same protocols and IT as a normal company, anyone who's going to hack the school systems is just going to have access to all these people's private information and cameras and who knows what.
Well, I think this extends far a little beyond simply the school system, where, like, for example, I have been working at home for the last 5 weeks. And in order to, because none of the Linux machines I have at home will play nicely with the enterprise video conferencing software my employer uses, they gave me a laptop. Now, I'm pretty confident that my employer did not install, spyware on my laptop. But at the same time, it's a case of I'm bringing a company computer into my home, and it sits over there on the filing cabinet. I use it every day. I'm sure there are quite a few other people in that scenario. But one of the things where this kind of gets into the intersection of privacy and and separation of home life versus not home life. There are corporations out there that do algorithmic monitoring of their employees. So this could be monitoring software that is runs on your computer. It could be other things like timing how long it takes you to perform an employee to perform individual tasks. But once I could see it's a crappy situation. I think the whole algorithmic monitoring thing and algorithmic employee optimization thing is well, I don't think highly of it. But when you start giving your employees company issued IT equipment that starts going into their homes, and then now it's not just the school who knows about what you're doing, it's potentially your employer who knows about what you're doing. So
Yeah.
there's and it's also something that is has been rather normalized over the last couple of weeks, and may continue to be normalized into the future. We don't know.
Well, that, and if you give access to your own home security, any measures that you take goes right out the window with these devices, because if their system's compromised, now suddenly your system's compromised on a fundamental level, seeing that you're
Mm-hmm.
giving access to it, giving it your Wi-Fi password and whatnot, and so it doesn't even matter if you're using extra measures like Tor browsing and VPNs, because they just have a green light to go and walk right in.
So, I mean, this could be this might be something we want to think about having at some point, but like a best practices review of home security, things like setting up a DMZ, and you know setting up a DMZ, which is basically a portion of your home network where you can get to the outside, but you can't get to most of the other computers. It's sort of like a little, sort of, well, demilitarized zone is probably a good analogy. But the idea is that you can bring in a piece of equipment. Maybe it's from an employer or from your school, or just people who are visiting, and you could give them access to use your network, but without giving them access to everything that's on that network.
I've always been a fan of Unix. I don't know if you've ever heard of it before.
Now, what is it?
So it is. It's spelled WHONIX, and it is a software that can create a virtual box. And there's actually two different versions of it, if I recall. One where, or there's a couple like it, anyways. But what it does is creates a virtual machine that allows you to, if you could use that, you create a virtual window that allows you to browse anonymously. A little bit more heavy on the processing, because you're eventually creating a whole new computer operating system. But it's something that definitely worth looking into, and we could probably do a video of it sometime later on, though I know there's a lot of videos out there about this particular platform. Completely open sourced, free, and it's one of those things that it's in the Linux world, but you could run it on non-Linux. You can run it on Windows, and essentially it just helps you be completely anonymous, putting everything. Whereas even if they compromise your VPN and your Tor and your VPN, it still stops them, because fundamentally it's not a real computer. So,
Well, I think one thing. Sorry, go on.
no, it's I was done.
I mean, one thing everyone can do is, on Windows, certainly on Linux, and definitely on Mac OS, you can turn on what's called a firewall, such that unless you give it authorization to allow a connection in or a connection out, it blocks everything. And that's something that should be turned on for every single computer, so that even if you have a work computer and it's on your network, if it can't actually get to the other computers because they're just automatically blocked because they're not coming in on safe ports, then you're a lot more secure that way. But certainly being able to, if your Wi-Fi router has different networks, I remember the old Apple access points would have two different networks that you could set different security on, and one was sort of your home network, and one was just for guests and things like that. As Steve said, putting your work computer on that guest network just gives that extra degree of protection. And those are two, obviously, if your router, say it's by Comcast or other ISPs, may only allow you to do one network, which is probably a good reason to go get your own and not use theirs, because they're probably charging you $5 a month when you could just buy the thing, and end up saving money off that. So
Actually, one of my favorite programs, and a good friend of mine put me onto this one, it's called PeerBlock. PEER, BLOCK, and it's definitely a donation only organization, but nominal company. If you want to track exactly who is accessing your system and whenever, and it auto blocks a lot of the universities and a lot of the compromised internet hubs automatically as part of its thing. But you can individually lock down every single one if you want to, and slowly open them up. Though I don't recommend it because loading web pages when you do that is kind of a challenge to individually unlock each one. But if you want to see what's accessing your computer at any given time, PureBlock is definitely one of the best ones out there.
Okay.
So um, that's all I have for today. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me for another exciting piratey news here on the East Coast. And hopefully everybody out you there listening is enjoying our content. Definitely give us a thumbs up, like, and subscribe if you haven't already, and by all means share. Please help us get the word out there. Appreciate you all.